Okay.
I delayed you so I could play Mario Kart, so it's all good.
Oh, you prick. Welcome back to Ben and Matt's Marvellous Journey. This is episode 18 of our deep dive into the history of the MCU. Episode 18 means it's Black Panther. Just to get this on the table, we recorded this originally straight after the movie came out, knowing that, we wouldn't be covering it for weeks, months even. And in my head I thought, I won't be able to remember enough of the movie, we need to get these thoughts down now, and we'll just sit on it until the time. And then, because I'm a crazy person, I said, why don't we give it a try? And luckily, my co-host, Ben Phillips, saw the movie again, 2 days ago, or 1 day ago, so...
Yesterday morning at 10:40.
There you go. Ben, that's you. How are you?
I'm good.
How was it the second time?
It was very good. I will admit I was more distracted this time, but I went for a refresher more than a fully immersed. I was kind of looking out for different things and kind of going in and yeah. I
mean, and you went to see this again just to do it. And then I said to you about 2 hours ago, do you want to re-record the whole podcast?
Yes, so I'm fresh. I've watched the movie recently. It's gone up a ranking in my rankings based on a viewing in which I was distracted throughout the movie.
Wow, and I feel this is also an opportunity for you to talk my ranking of it up slightly, because as I've said in both the Thor 1 and the Spider-Man 1 and the Guardians 2 1, sometimes my opinion of these movies does change by just talking them out with someone for an hour or so. So we'll see what happens.
Is our ranking coming out before this episode?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But that will be recorded after this episode, so...
Everything is stupid at the moment.
Yes, the space-time continuum is broken by Thanos' impending arrival. Yeah, by the time you hear this, there will be a crossover episode available at entertherealworld.com, wherein us and the Superhero Pantheon, which is a rival/friendly superhero podcast where they rank various superhero movies, co-hosted by Jerome Cusan, who has been on this website before. Yeah, we will be crossing over to preview Infinity War, which, when you hear this episode, should be coming out in 1 or 2 days. So the end is almost here for our MCU podcast. But for now, we get to talk about Black Panther. So the biggest thing would be, holy fuck, has this made a lot of money? Holy fuck, is it incredibly culturally important, and what a sort of social win in a lot of ways. It's gorgeous. The soundtrack is amazing. It is full of amazing performances. It has one of the more talked about villains in the history of superhero movies. There are a few problems with some visual effects. I have a couple of issues with the plot, but as you said on the recording that is now gone forever, this film isn't about the plot. This film is about so many other things.
So many good things.
So many good things. And that's the other thing. When we did that initial recording, we knew it had opened strong. We had no idea it was going to sustain this level of money. And it's still making money as of now. So it may finish even higher.
Where we are right now, it's in the top 3 highest grossing domestic movies of all time.
Yes, and when we say domestic in our British accent, we are, of course, talking about American cinema. Domestically, it has passed the Avengers, right?
Yes, about a week or 2 ago.
Yeah, so in America, the highest grossing superhero movie ever, it's behind, Avatar and...
Force Awakens.
And Force Awakens. And
it's just overtaken Titanic this weekend.
Yeah, as of this recording, so, who knows? By the time all is said and done, it would be quite an achievement, but it may pass Avatar. Who knows? In the top 10 in terms of worldwide gross.
It is number 10 as of recording right now. Obviously, it's got about 50 million to make for it to overtake the next boundary. So it could do that, but I think that there's a ceiling on the number now, and I'm not sure. It could definitely do that, but we shall see.
It has the unique distinction of being the only Marvel film that made its entire production budget back in its opening fucking weekend. $200 million it cost to make this thing. And it was released on the 16th of February 2018. That's right, this podcast, in which we started off talking about movies that came out in 2008. We finally hit the current year. The only film to come out since Thor Ragnarok of the superhero variety.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's been movies that have been released since then.
No movies came out. None.
Notably, Disney had their own little movie called Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Never heard of it. Justice League. DC, Warner Bros. Put out The Justice League to a minor fizzle. This movie is 134 minutes long, which seems to be the kind of sweet spot that Marvel have been at in recent times. Around 130 minutes for solo movies, much, much longer when it's Civil War and presumably Infinity War. I actually wish this film was even longer. I don't remember the last time I thought that about a film. I constantly complain that films are too long, that you could easily lose 10, 20 minutes. This one, I would happily have had even more stuff in there because they've got so much to do with world building and they absolutely nail it in that regard. But they spend so much time doing that I think the sort of pacing of the plot, the through line of the story, is slightly dinged by that. And if you had a few more minutes to play with, I think that could have really been massaged into something even better. That is not to take anything away from the film. It's fucking outstanding. It's just that's the part where it suffers from me. And I think the length may have contributed.
Honestly, on second watch, normally there's stuff I would cut or change or something about or I speak like I actually have the ability to do these kind of things, but there's always those little criticisms you have when you watch these superhero movies where you're just like, oh, I wish this thing was like a little bit quicker, but you get why they did it. On second watch of Black Panther, I was just like, there's nothing in this movie that I would cut or shorten or anything like that. It nails what it has to do, and any complaints I have are all about it kind of having to be a superhero movie, which at this point is basically more of I wish Marvel would, this movie's obviously, Ryan Coogler's been given a lot of free reign, but there's obviously still some dictates that mean he has to come back to the same form and structure of the other movies in the franchise.
Yes, it must end in a big old CGI fight.
Yeah, which is, that's the only thing. The CGI fight is great, and the characters, there's actual character moments baked into it. I think everyone in that final fight gets a little arc or something. It's just sad that it has to have a final fight.
They'll get there. They will at some point get there. I think in a post-Infinity War world where potentially some of these characters, if not dead, will be off the deck and they're going to potentially be launching some new franchises, some new stuff, I would imagine they will finally get it together and maybe put out some films that are not a traditional superhero-style thing. But we will see. You mentioned Ryan Coogler. He is, of course, the director. He made Creed, he made Fruitvale Station. He co-wrote the film with Joe Robert Cole, who is part of the Marvel Writers Program. He wrote, I can't remember if it's one or more than one episode of American Crime Story.
He wrote 2 episodes of American Crime Story. Season 1, not Season 2. 2 of the best episodes of American Crime Story, Season 1.
There you go. Donald and Stephen Glover contributed to some of the earlier versions of the script, and I wish that they were going to be contributing more to Marvel, but we have had the unfortunate news that Deadpool, the cartoon series, has been shut down for now. That wasn't true when we recorded this first time around, so that's a bummer.
Who at Marvel is such a massive fan of Community? Because, I think the last, 3 or 4 movies we talked about have had uncredited script writing from...
Chris McKenna, I think.
Chris McKenna, well, he's credited on Homecoming, isn't he?
Yeah. Not credited for Winter Soldier.
Not credited for Winter Soldier, but Dan Harmon isn't credited on Doctor Strange. We've obviously got these two here. The Russo brothers directed Civil War. Stephen and Donald Glover are working on this movie. Obviously, only one of those worked on Community.
Daniel Puddy's been in here. We've had Jim Rash. We're going to complete the set at some point.
We're assuming that we're going to have some sort of cameo from someone of Community in Infinity War based on the fact the last 2 Russo movies have had that.
I really want Britta to voice Proxima Midnight. I think that would be great, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. And then obviously this movie, the soundtrack is done by...
Ludwig, who
is... obviously he's probably more at this point more famous for being Charles Gambino's producer, but yeah, he did the music for all 6 seasons of Community and has now done this.
As a white Swedish man, a very Swedish man, to absolutely crush it with what, to my white ear, sounds like very good, authentic African-style music. Regardless of how authentic it is or isn't, it's fucking great. So
we should also say he has worked with Ryan Coogler on his previous 2 movies as well. So this is a relationship that is long-standing across all 3 of this man's movies.
And before we go any further, as part of this whole "it's made all this money" kind of thing, it's impossible to escape from what a huge cultural moment this film has been. From the very beginning, the enormous The enormously positive response to the ad campaign, the posters, that famous, is this what white people get to feel like all the time moment, the viral videos of kids elated that they get to go see the film. There have been numerous crowdfunding campaigns to get underprivileged kids to get to go and see it. Octavia Spencer and many other actors and athletes and celebrities have paid to hire out theatres for the day so that kids can see it for free. And just there's been a huge interest from non-comic book fans, because this is a rare example where a large black cast are in a film about blackness that isn't about slavery, it isn't about tragedy, it isn't about racism. It's a celebration, it's an uplifting thing, and I think every single part of that is undeniably great to see. And you see what that equates to financially, but I mean, who cares about the finance when so many people are so happy that this exists?
Although it is important to say that it doesn't ignore the history of the world. It's a celebration, but it also acknowledges the fact that bad shit has happened over the years to black people.
Yeah, and that is a key part of this film, and like some of the motivation behind the antagonists. But the general vibe of it, though, is one of optimism and joy.
Oh, totally. But like, God, this time watching it again, I was really hit hard by Killmonger's like last line of the movie, where he's just like, bury me in the sea with all the other black people that valued death over slavery or enslavement. It's just like, oh my God.
Slaves that jumped over the side of the boat so that they could die on their own terms and stuff, bury me with my ancestors. It was very, very powerful. All right, so Marvel have been attempting to make a Black Panther film for a very, very long time. Wesley Snipes was seeking to play him as far back as 1992. A film entered development at Columbia in 94 starring Snipes. Didn't end up happening because they went through a lot of writers and directors. Stan Lee said he didn't like any of the scripts. A noted Hollywood script expert, Stan Lee, Snipes said that a lot of people thought that the film was about the Black Panther Party. It's interesting how far we've come that I don't think I heard that said even once for this. But, back in the day, this was a concern. In 98, Marvel brought in Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, who were the editors of the comic at the time, to write a version of the script. Marvel went and got bankrupt, so that ended that. Artisan Entertainment announced their deal to make the film in 2000, one of several Marvel films they attempted to make but never did. They again wanted Snipes. He was in talks about it, but he opted to make Blade 3 instead. Wonderful decision there by Mr. Snipes. Interestingly enough, Black Panther was the first character who Marvel got the rights to back when they announced their big slate of films in the initial Marvel Paramount deal in 2005. They wanted this to be one of the first 10. They went through a lot more potential writers and directors. They kept going. I believe Black Panther was included in that sort of project with their writing program to launch lesser-known properties. That worked out really well for Guardians of the Galaxy. They had Doctor Strange in there, Ant-Man, so yeah. They started to seed in some references to, that was an unintentional pun, but some references to Vibranium and Wakanda in the MCU as early as Iron Man 2. Various screens sort of points to Wakanda as a place of interest. Joss Whedon spoke about the scene in Age of Ultron, calling it Wakanda, because they wanted to leave that as an option. And then finally, this film started taking shape in 2014. I say finally, 4 years before it came out. They hired Chadwick Boseman, didn't audition, just had a conversation with them and got the job. He, of course, appears in Civil War. We covered that. Ava DuVernay, who made Selma, passed on the film after some disagreements with Marvel. F. Gary Gray passed on it to do Fast and Furious 8. I believe he was also in the running to do Winter Soldier. I think they are quite desperate to get him to make a movie for them, but we'll see if that ever happens. Ryan Coogler finally got the job, brought in a lot of his own people, as you alluded to. He brought in Ludwig, he brought in his cinematographer, he brought in his production designer, his team. And we've spoken at length about the battle between Marvel and sort of the creative vision of the filmmakers they hire, and how it seems to have gone in the way of the filmmakers more in recent years after that sort of tumultuous period with Thor: The Dark World and sort of that kind of thing. And this feels, while it obviously has those constraints of being a superhero movie, it does feel like a director's vision. And there is, of course, heavy implementation of Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on the comic, which, when we first recorded this, was all on sale. It is not now, but you should still read it. It is Amazing. Ben, you did this already, so I sort of feel bad for you, but do you want to talk about the history of Black Panther in comics?
Yeah, I do want to give a special shout out to Rachel Morrison, who's the cinematographer on this.
Yes.
She was nominated for an Oscar for Mudbound just this year or last year, depending on how you think the Oscars work. Yeah, her work is stunning. God, this movie looks so good.
Is it the best looking Marvel film?
Yes.
Yes, agreed.
Categorically.
Is it the best sounding Marvel film?
Yes.
Yes, good. All right. We're nailing that down. Does it have the highest concentration of good performances of any Marvel film?
Oh, God, yes.
There you go. Right. In a lot of ways, this is one of the very best Marvel films. You'd be crazy to rank it outside the top 5, wouldn't you?
You'd be crazy to rank it outside the top 3.
Oh, wow. Okay. We'll see what happens. Right. Go ahead. Give us Black Panther.
Black Panther, obviously created by two people called Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Never heard of it.
He debuted in Fantastic Four number 52 in 1966. It's actually kind of shocking that Black Panther is not in the Fox deal, considering that's where he debuted and where an awful lot of characters who debuted in that are still tied up with Fox. But I guess by virtue of him having so many kind of mid-length comic runs over his history, he got to escape because he's managed to forge his own little corner of the Marvel Universe. He started starring in comic books with Jungle Action number 5. Please forgive us.
Just generally, not even just for this.
He starred in a kind of a load of short to mid-length runs throughout his history, probably in the 70s and 80s, before probably the most famous run that people talk about nowadays, which is Christopher Priest's run that started in 1998, which is the one that you were referring to earlier. That was edited by Joe Quesada and Christopher Palmiotti. Probably that and Ta-Nehisi Coates' run, which started in 2016, are the two most influential runs over this comic book. I mean, at least Christopher Priest didn't have to do it when they had Black Panther and Storm married. Look, we got two black characters. They're romancing now.
Yep, she lost her virginity to him when she was like 12. That's good.
Oh, that's the thing.
He was not 12.
Yes, so I mean, again, probably the most prominent stories that Black Panther was in before this movie came out in recent years were John Hickman's New Avengers series, which is fantastic. Probably my favourite part of that series is the relationship between T'Challa and Namor, and then obviously Ta-Nehisi Coates' and Brian Stelfreeze's run on the character that started in 2006, which is rebooting in the next couple of weeks.
Soft reboot, though, I believe.
Soft reboot. Ta-Nehisi Coates is still writing it, but Black Panther's going to space.
Mm-hmm.
I know how much you love Marvel Comics in space, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, well...
If you want to hear more about Matt's opinion on space Marvel characters, go and watch Excellent Adventures, or listen to Excellent Adventures.
I liked Annihilation.
Yeah, you and Mike were like very harsh on like, oh god, the Dark Phoenix saga, why are we going to space again?
Well, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the X-Men leaving the planet, to be honest, but that's a completely other podcast that is available at entertherealworld.com, soundcloud.com/Mike and Matt. Very good. Well then, let's do this. So we open the film with this frankly gorgeous piece of animation giving us the sort of backstory of Wakanda and where the Black Panther powers come from. You know, one warrior united the tribes. He ingested the heart-shaped herb, which grows from the soil of Wakanda because a meteor hit. You better believe that's an Infinity Stone.
What other reason would Thanos have to go to Wakanda if it wasn't for an Infinity Stone somewhere in that continent? Also, one thing about the animation of this scene, I absolutely loved that about a scene or two later when T'Challa is plotting his attack on the kind of sex slave runners. It looks like it's the same. Their projection software is the same animation stuff that they're doing here.
As many know already, but you know, if they don't, they're getting the crash course. Wakanda sort of masquerades as a third world nation, is in fact technologically ahead of everyone. Everyone lives a very nice life and is protected by the King and Black Panther, who has these superpowers. Anyway, we then move to 1992. That's right, we're not even close to present day yet, where then King and Black Panther T'Chaka visits Oakland, California to confront his brother N'Jobu, accusing him of helping smuggle vibranium out of Wakanda. We kind of learn about some of N'Jobu's motivations. He essentially wants to arm those of African descent with some of Wakanda's technology so that they can overthrow their oppressors, which is pretty heavy subject matter that, I mean, I'm glad they're doing it. It's just somewhat uncomfortable to hear about, and, you know, it's uncomfortable because I'm white, so fuck me. But, yeah, this sort of subplot of overthrowing white people is... I'm sure there are out there some troubling opinions written about this on the internet because it's the internet, but it's heavy stuff to put in a Marvel film for sure.
Even though they acknowledge that it's like heavy subject matter and that this is probably like an extremist point of view, because whenever they talk about N'Jobu, they don't acknowledge that like what he's doing is right. They talk him in terms of radicalization, in terms of like him coming to America and he's seen just how bad it is. Like he's kind of gone to an extreme, and obviously like it's one of those things where I'm sure they feel bad, but it's part of that theme of the movie, which is like they are more interested in protecting themselves from the rest of the world than they are in helping the rest of the world.
It's not clear how long he's been there, but I'm going to assume that he was in Oakland in the sort of late 80s, which was not a pleasant time to be of his skin colour in that region of the country.
Like if you assume that his son's like probably about 10 years old, then
of course,
he's probably been there for a good decade. I'm intrigued how long Zuri has been there disguised as Uncle James.
Yes, indeed. Well, okay, so we've got Giancarlo as T'Chaka, Sterling K. Brown as N'Jobu, and Daniel Whitaker, who is of no relation to Forrest Whitaker, as a young Zuri. That is a reveal we get kind of halfway through the movie, that N'Jobu's sort of friend is in fact a younger version of Zuri. It's a very surprising way to start this film. I did not see it coming that we were going to start in Oakland, California, and in 1992. But it's interesting, and it's something that they will keep revisiting, because we will, of course, learn that T'Chaka murdered his brother in order to defend Zuri, and then ordered Zuri to cover it up and pretend that he just disappeared, and they leave behind a young Eric Stevens who is orphaned in this moment, and we will learn what happens with him. But yeah, this whole backstory that we will see revisited as characters have these sort of moments of flashing back and seeing this. It's great stuff.
Oh yeah, like this. It's so jarring for the movie to start this way, but it almost like sets the entire tone of the movie, which is like, even though we know we're going to get this very African imagery influenced movie, this isn't a movie about Africa. This is a movie about the black experience around the world. Sorry,
I say Giancarlo. Playing him in the flashbacks is Atandwa Carney, who is his son, and Giancarlo plays him when we see T'Challa visit him in the, I'm going to call it the Soul World. It's got a name in that Ta-Nehisi Coates run that I could not remember or pronounce, but sort of the Wakandan afterlife, as it were. It's Giancarlo there who was in Civil War. But yes, father and son here playing the same character.
Again, I'm intrigued. Much like Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yes.
This movie takes place 1 week after the events of Civil War.
Sure does.
I mean, I do think that Tony's like entire processing of what happened during Civil War is maybe a little bit more jarring in Spider-Man Homecoming, but T'Challa is like remarkably more chill.
Yep, he is, because in the present day, 1 week has been said after the events of Civil War. T'Challa, the Crown Prince, current Black Panther, leads a mission to extract his ex-lover Nakia, who is one of Wakanda's war dogs. These are sort of sleeper agents who are around the world keeping tabs on global events, really, and reporting back to Wakanda. They get her so that she can attend his coronation ceremony. So, Chadwick Boseman is back as T'Challa. Adewale Akinoye, Agbaje, Anthony Mackie, Jimon Honsu, John Boyega were all considered for this part. Everyone but Boyega would, of course, get a different role in a Marvel movie. John Singleton wanted Chiwetel Ejiofor for this, but Boseman is really good. I think it's a lot like Chris Evans' portrayal of Captain America in that it's very understated. It is not flashy and look at me. Like, this is a solemn person, a guy who kind of thinks before he speaks a lot of the time. So it's not going to bowl you over in the way that a Robert Downey Jr. does, in the way that a bombastic performance like Chris Hemsworth and some of the glam villains and stuff like that do. But he's just very quietly good. It's very unfortunate for him that he's going to be surrounded by so many people who are doing amazing work.
It's so similar to kind of like what Chris Evans was doing in the first Captain America movie. But then the issue is that Chris Evans wasn't surrounded by people doing such fantastic work, but the performances are like very, very similar. And it's what makes me excited to see where the second part of this one goes, because obviously like we both think that Chris Evans' Winter Soldier performance and his Civil War performance are just outstanding. So yeah, the idea of Black Panther or T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman getting more to do and to actually like have emotion outside of this kind of death of his father kind of story to play.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I think they would be smart to position him as the new Captain America as we move into a post-Infinity War world. And, you know, I don't know who the Tony Stark to his Cap is going to be, but certainly he would be a great person to build around given the success of this and how good he is. I love this little fight scene they have where, you know, he's he's stealthily in the jungle in the suit that we saw in Civil War, which we'll get to them discarding that soon. But it's just a fun little fight scene where he's just kicking ass and just getting to do Black Panther things.
They really start nailing the banter. Obviously, you start with Okoye before he goes down, just turns to him and goes like, "Don't freeze."
Yes.
And then we get this like completely badass fight scene where he's like wrecking shop, and then he comes face to face with the love of his life, and he's just like stuttering teenage him, kind of like trying to figure out like what he's going to say to this girl who he's presumably not seen in a couple of months, years.
Yeah.
And then obviously they get taken by surprise. Someone sneaks up behind them, and then Okoye comes up and just like, "You froze."
Yeah.
Or like takes him out and just like, "You froze."
Danai Gurira as Okoye, she is great. I make no bones about the fact that I think this is one of the best performances in the movie. She does so much with her face, which is an odd thing to say, but she does all these great facial expressions. She's really physically imposing, and as you said, like they establish this banter between her and T'Challa straight away. She has this great chemistry with everyone, with Nakia, with Ao, with everyone, really.
I will say, like on this second watch, I was sat there like watching her whenever she was on screen, because like I know you are a big supporter of her, and I need to pay attention to her because I think I had her slightly down, but like she is so good, and just her little like side glances, and because obviously like all the Dora Milaje are bald.
Yes.
And so their faces are so kind of like there's no framing for them. There's just like a face, and it makes it so much more expressive. Not that hair is important, but like it draws you in to what their eyes are doing, what their mouth is doing, so much more than if there's like long hair. I don't want to say like I get distracted by hair all the time, but like I'm definitely like
building an interesting psychological picture of you here.
But I'm just like, I was so much more engrossed in like what her facial features were doing than I would have been.
Yeah, I'm right. I mean, she's doing great things with her face.
She's doing like fantastic things with her face.
Yeah, a lot of the marketing material talked about the Dora Milaje being kind of a secret service, and that she isn't so much like a head warrior as much as she's sort of the head of their intelligence or something. I kind of would like to explore that a lot more in sequels, which are inevitably coming. Hopefully we get more of her, but yeah, she's just fucking great throughout. Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia, similar with the Dora Milaje. I would kind of like to know more about these war dogs. It's a term that it doesn't go unexplained. It's just I would kind of like to see more of it. She trained very hard in martial arts. We get to see her kicking some ass. She speaks many languages, and we get to see examples of that. You know, she's got great chemistry with everyone. I just kind of feel she could have had a little bit more development in a film that has a lot of characters in it, and you're interested to see more of them. But to me, she feels underdeveloped in a way that some of the others do not.
Yeah, I think the two characters who I feel are most short-serviced are Ramonda and Nakia.
Yes.
They're the two that like come away and I'm just kind of going like, I didn't feel like they got a complete arc. But I don't think it's for lack of trying on Nyong'o's part, where I think she is absolutely fantastic in all the stuff that she does.
Yes, she's a very charismatic performer. Like, she does great stuff with everything she has. I just kind of want to know more about her.
The war dogs, like I remember the first time I watched the movie, it took me a good while to figure out what the war dogs were, and that the tattoos were something that only the war dogs had. And that is why Zuri also has one, because Zuri is a war dog because he's a spy. It's one of those things where I want more of her, but I wouldn't cut anything else in this movie.
No,
so
again,
as you said,
I want it to be longer. I don't want to lose anything.
I've got a friend who was just like, why is she in this movie? And I get completely why she's in this movie. It probably is part of the kind of like regressive, we need a love interest type thing.
Sure.
But she doesn't just have to be a love interest.
She doesn't. And I would like to see them do more. Like, she is a window into another sort of world, but given the status quo of Wakanda's sort of politics by the end of this, we kind of probably won't get to see the stuff I was interested in, or it will have changed, but maybe we'll get some flashbacks or something to show, you know, then and now as it pertains to what war dogs are all about. So they escort her back to Wakanda. We get this ceremony. As is Wakandan custom, each of the 5 tribes are invited to challenge the ascension of T'Challa, and in this instance, M'Baku, leader of the Jabari tribe, takes him up on this offer. The Jabari, of course, were the one tribe that were not cool with the unification, and they live up in the mountains away from the others. They turn up. He challenges T'Challa, who has to temporarily surrender his powers in order to make it a fair fight. He, of course, wins and is named king. And we meet a lot of characters here, and there's a lot to talk about here because, you know, you see Wakanda, you see these costumes, you see all this stuff. I want to kind of get this out of the way, which kind of, it feels dismissive, but I just really can't think of other places to talk about her. But Florence Kasumba, as Ao, is reprising her role from Civil War. She is one of the many characters that greets them when they return to Wakanda. Controversially, potentially, I may have cut a scene that highlights that this character is known. She is famously queer. You'll see in the Ta-Nehisi Coates run if you read it, which you should. I don't know how true it is. There were rumours that they filmed a scene that shows this that they cut out. I don't know. But she is back, and one of the many people that we meet in Wakanda. Is she in Infinity War?
She might be.
You will remember from Civil War, she kind of was daring Black Widow to fight her. And now that we've seen Black Panther, we've seen how badass the Dora Milaje are and all this kind of stuff, that scene plays a lot differently than it did when you first saw it. And we know that Black Widow is heading for Wakanda. So I wonder if there is time to maybe have a little interaction between them again. I don't know, but that would be nice.
She is in Infinity War.
Okay, cool. So, as I said, we are seeing Wakanda. We are seeing these costumes. And in this ceremony that they put a lot of it in the trailers, as you see all the different tribes standing on like the cliff faces and, you know, all these bright, colourful costumes. They worked closely with experts on the region of Africa where Wakanda is supposed to be, tried to incorporate various histories and cultures. They did a lot of work on costume design at lots of different African tribes. They went to a lot of big name fashion designers. They wanted to make sure each of the 5 tribes has their own aesthetic and colour scheme. I think they absolutely nailed that. I like that they all look different and they all have slightly different customs and jobs and duties. And I would like to explore the relationship between the various tribes and the politics of that in a sequel. I don't want to see someone challenging for T'Challa's throne again. Like, we get that here. I just want to see sort of the politics of Wakanda, as it were.
We get some time with the different tribes, but it feels like the border tribe is the only one that like gets significant play. I'm very intrigued by what the leadership setup is, because obviously, like, later on in the movie, Wakabi seems to have immense influence over what the border tribe does.
They seem to each have an elder and then like a champion, as it were, or like a physical, like a younger sort of physical representation. My memory of that scene, like, you go to each of them as they're asked if they will challenge. You have an older individual who sort of sits with the king in those scenes where it's like a council type thing, and then you have someone a bit younger, a little bit more physically capable.
But like, even then, like, Wakabi feels like, because he's in the scenes in the kind of like conference area where they're all sat down, because he's the head of the border defences.
Yes.
He gets a seat there and is the only one of the champions who gets a seat there, along with his elder, presumably.
Yeah. I wonder, I guess that's because of the role he fulfills is so important to the nation at large, and it's not about which tribe it is, it's just who is holding that position.
The fact that we can talk about this and like hypothesize,
and this is the stuff I want to get into in the future. It's
so good that like there's a movie that it has questions and we are interested in what the world is around this.
Yeah, and I love the Wakanda Forever kind of salute, the sort of the double chest bump. I did it just now. That doesn't play on a microphone. I feel so white talking about it, but like the cultural customs that you are established here are all great. Like the dancing, the music, it's all fantastic to me. Winston Duke as M'Baku, leader of the Jabari. Thank Christ they dropped the man-ape name, which doesn't need explanation, but yeah, they sort of steered around that. His best stuff is coming later, but I just want to quickly name drop him here because they have this fight. I think the fight itself is really cool. I like the fight style that T'Challa exhibits, very low to the ground, a lot of turning and like the weapon-based combat, all that sort of stuff. Winston Duke and Lupita Nyong'o, they saw Avengers together because they went to the same college, I believe, and they said that they dreamed of being in a Marvel movie, and here they both are. That's very, very nice, I think. But yeah, the combat generally and like establishing this ritual because it will come back, all very important stuff.
I think Winston Duke is fantastic.
Is he in Infinity War?
He is Infinity War.
Cool. Hope he survives. Hope we see him in the next film. Forrest Whitaker as the adult Zuri sort of bridges the gap between the generations of Wakanda. Like, he's Forrest Whitaker. He's been playing Forrest Whitaker for a long time now. He continues to be good at playing Forrest Whitaker. Like, the stuff we get when T'Challa confronts him about the truth with, did his father murder his uncle, and the reveal that Zuri was that young friend of Joby at the beginning. All that is really well played, and you see this genuine sorrow in Forrest Whitaker's face, and he helps establish sort of the ceremony of all of it and the heart-shaped herb. It's important. You need these sort of elder characters.
Again, they don't need actors of the quality that they get for some of the roles in this movie, but the fact that they do elevates the entire thing. Like, you don't need Oscar winner Forrest Whitaker to play your, like, in any other movie. If this hadn't had such a high concentration of African American cast members, he would be your, like, wise black elder. That is a role that Forrest Whitaker has played before, but you don't need Forrest Whitaker to play.
He and Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda both, like, I feel it's just an example of these are prominent black actors who have, had long careers where they've probably struggled with the kind of roles they get at times, and you have this film that is so important to black culture. I am sure they jumped at the chance to. I mean, they may not have known it was going to be as big as it was when they signed up, but I'm sure they are very proud that they got to be part of it. And they help a great deal. As you said, Ramonda is quite underdeveloped. Bassett underwent a lot of intense physical training for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Actually, I don't think she had a single vaguely physical scene, but hey-ho, she looked good. And again, like you said, I wish there was a little bit more for her, but what do you lose? Nothing.
Again, it's part of that thing, like, they cast her and you elevate a role that would be played by, not saying someone less deserving, but like it draws you to it because it's like, oh my god, it's Angela Bassett playing this role. It's just these small moments of elevation that just add to the celebration, where it's just like, can we get as many celebrated modern black actors in this movie, as well as can we start to ingratiate like the next generation of black actors? Because you have Winston Duke and Daniel Kaluuya and Letitia Wright, all of these people who are like the next generation of...
Yeah, for sure. We kind of packaged it in when we were talking about the flashback, but that the scene when he takes the herb again, regains the Panther powers, and he speaks with his father in this afterlife. That scene is fucking gorgeous. The purple skyline, the inverted version of the outfit that is white instead of black, and all that stuff is amazing to look at. But you mentioned Letitia Wright. As I said, we meet a lot of characters straight away, and there's a lot to sort of get into, which is difficult for a format of a podcast. But here we go. The joy of this film, the shining light amongst many bright lights. Letitia Wright as Shuri is so much fun. Donald and Stephen Glover's contributions to the script, I think, are largely based around this relationship. This playful sibling, gentle mockery of each other, her teasing of him, and she is just an absolute joy to watch, and she is a goddamn star in the making.
Yeah, the first scene is her going like, did he freeze, to Okoye, and then walking off while swearing at him, and just goes from there. She's like a Q with more personality.
Yeah, we get that Q style scene where she's showing him all his new tech, and it's amazing. It's truly amazing.
I feel like there's a dryness to when like James Bond does the introducing the new weapons. Like, there's a kind of cheekiness occasionally to when they do those scenes, but this one is like, there's a joy to what she's showing T'Challa. She's just like, look at this cool shit I made.
Yeah, she loves it. And like when she meets Ross later on, like she's initially distrusting, but then when he's asking about her tech, she's like, well, I can't turn down an invitation to talk about my amazing work I do. And she's just so enthusiastic, and I love enthusiasm when you can like feel it on the screen. And I love that all of the Wakandan tech, it's like the stuff that we've seen in Iron Man from Tony Stark, but ramped up a notch. I love the kind of the moving beads, the living sand type display stuff they have. I love all this cool stuff, and like her filming him while he's testing out this new suit, knowing that he's going to embarrass himself. It's just great. She's amazing. She's utterly amazing. They've modified the character a little bit because in the comics, T'Challa is actually like a massive tech genius. Like the idea that he fights like Captain America, he has the brain of a Reed Richards, the wealth of a Tony Stark, this kind of thing. They sort of supplanted his tech side and gave it to Shuri, and I'm glad they did it because it gives her something to really bite into. A young female black character who is so into science is great to see. In the comics, she of course does at points rise up to become the Queen of Wakanda, to become the official Black Panther, and he gets to be something else because comic books. I don't know if I see them going this route. She does get to do some fighting near the end, but it's tech-based fighting. I don't know if I can see her being a martial artist and getting down and dirty, but she doesn't necessarily need to, like she's Shuri and she's got her role, and they set her up to do cool things in the future, and to, if they ever do a kind of all-female Avengers team, I would love to see her as the tech support type thing, like the woman in the chair, as it were. I think it would all go really well.
I am so intrigued by what the properties of vibranium are after this scene, though. It feels like it is just magic.
It's a magic metal.
But there's just bits where she's just like, oh yeah, the suit is kept inside these inside the necklace. And it's just like, how? It's metal. Like, how do you condense the metal down to such tiny proportions that? Oh.
Ask Tony and his. Oh, those are nanobots, aren't they? This is different.
Yeah.
I don't know, but. It all works.
And it looks fantastic. And it's even little bits where, like, in other movies, it would bug me that the sneakers never come back. Every other bit of tech that we get shown in that scene comes back in some way. The sneakers don't, and I don't care. Because it's such a joyous moment of like, and it feels like it's such a centric joke for that culture. It's one of those things where like particular fashion styles definitely appeal more to African Americans and stuff like that. And so, look, we made badass shoes with this thing. It's like, yes,
fuck yeah, you did. That's the first thing you should be doing. We must move on from Shuri, as much as I adore her. And spoilers, she's getting an all Marvel performance. Meanwhile, in London, Eric Killmonger Stevens and a returning Ulysses Klaue, or Clow, as Joss Whedon called him, stage a heist in a museum. They steal some Wakandan artifacts. They get hold of some vibranium. Here are the villains. Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. Thank God he did not successfully get the part of Falcon several years previously. He joined this production late, and he kept to himself. He said he became pretty antisocial to sort of get into this character. And all in all, this is one of the best pieces of physical acting I've seen in a very long time. Like, the way he stands, the way he moves, his costuming. It's not to say that, the things he says and does aren't amazing, but just those little touches are all fucking amazing. And his outfit in this museum scene, like, swoon. I'm sorry, but all that denim, that hairstyle, those glasses, ugh.
Hips are catnip.
Yes, that's true. Not that I am a hipster at all, but yeah, I look at him and my heart melts. He's fucking great. Straight from this first scene, like, seeing that mask and like, nah, I'm just feeling it, and correcting this woman about Wakandan history, and just the moment he appears on the screen, everyone knows what's up.
Yeah, he's so damn good. I just want to like live in like his line deliveries. I struggle to talk about this character because it's so good, because it feels like it's a lesson learned about all these other like Marvel villains that have failed over the years. Like, it does very similar things to a lot of other Marvel villains.
I think you said that you thought Caecilius was almost a forerunner to Killmonger.
Yes, I mean, exactly. Like, there's this, like, we spend time and we actually get their point of view. And obviously, like, this is different to Michael Keaton as Vulture, where we actually spend time with him, where he's not a villain. And we get to see that turn. Like, in his first scene, he is a villain. He murders someone in this very first scene that he's in. But we still generate a level of, we get to see their point of view, and we get to know them before they go all out. And God, this is such a good performance.
One thing I want to say is that Kendrick Lamar does the soundtrack to this movie. Only a couple of the songs are actually used in it because of, Ludwig's score is amazing. And I really struggle with that because I love both of them, and I wouldn't take away one for the other, but I kind of wish we got more of both. That album came out before the movie, and I would almost consider it like supplementary material as almost a backstory to Killmonger. Not every song is from Killmonger's point of view, but there are several that very clearly are, and I listened to that thing a bunch, and it really helped me sort of get into the headspace of this character, and I think it really, I don't know, I sort of hear it in my head and sort of know who he is when I see him, and I think that really, really helped. So if anyone hasn't listened to that album, I'd say definitely do it, because it's great. Like, I think Kendrick gets the voice of who this character is really, really well.
Yeah, so much of this movie is built around making this figure almost mythic in some ways.
Yeah,
the way it treats him.
He is preternaturally good at murder, and he is Wakanda, he is Oakland, he is the CIA, he is Black Ops mercenary. Like, he's got so much going on, and as you said, he is he is almost mythic. Like the way he slides between these cultures, he's a ghost. He's a forgotten part of the history of both hemispheres.
I don't want to say the movie like idolizes him, because I think obviously it comes down on the side of this is a bad way to do the things he's doing.
Yeah.
But it definitely like sympathizes with what he's attempting to do, and that like he is entirely a child of circumstance, who the only reason he's done this is because his father was radicalized, and then his father was taken away from him at a stupidly young age by a culture that could save the world. And the movie doesn't have to delve into it that much, because so much of this performance embodies this kind of like conflicting ideas that he is proud of who he is, and he basically wants to make the place where he is quote unquote from better, both Wakanda and Oakland.
He's going to keep popping back up, but Andy Serkis is back as Claw. He continues to be very good at accents. I very much enjoy the moment where he tells that guy, you get to go, and then as he runs off, he shoots him in the back of the head, because of course he does. And it's like, oh, he's just being a dick. And when Killmonger sort of calls him on it, he's like, well, no, because if you spread the bodies out, it looks like a more amateur job. And it's like, okay, so this guy is a dirtbag, he is evil, but he's also good at what he does. And I think that's a very quickly sort of establishes him. I think he's pretty well served here for a character that he's in Age of Ultron, which was several years previously, and I mean the numbers say that a lot of people saw that, but maybe you don't really remember him. So if you're a newcomer and you haven't seen him do this role before, it might be a bit confusing that he is so prominent, but they do a good job of other characters reacting to him. That like he is mentioned in the very first scene, that flashback, as you're helping Claw smuggle vibranium out of Wakanda and selling to Claw, and the way that Wakabi wants Claw to die, and all of this stuff. I think they do a good job of kind of giving you this crash course in who this guy is. He is another perspective of Africa that has this history with Wakanda, and he is branded, as we learned from Age of Ultron, for being a thief. And, he is Wakanda's like public enemy number one. And, obviously Killmonger is the big sexy villain that everyone's talking about, but I actually think Serkis' performance is pretty good, pretty fun. And the stuff in Korea as well, with like his posse, and they've got a mixtape, and he'll get them a SoundCloud link and all that. I think it's pretty good. It's just there's a bit of a battle between Killmonger and Claw for screen time at times, I feel.
I mean, I'd actually go as far to say as I think Claw is maybe the best secondary villain in any Marvel movie.
When I first saw it, I was like, yeah, this is fun. But as I've thought on it over time, I'm like, you know what? He was really good. And you've seen it twice now, so...
Because obviously, like, we have secondary villains like Ben Kingsley's Mandarin and Sam Rockwell with Justin Hammer, who are really good, but they make their movies better when their movies...
Yeah, there's a common thing there.
Yeah, they make their movies, like, better and are quite often, like, some of the best stuff in their movies, whereas Claw isn't the best thing about this movie. The quality level that he's at just kind of like makes it more apparent that this movie gets what it's doing. It doesn't like it can give time to this character who would normally just be like the big bruiser who loses in a fight like a couple of scenes before the end. That's all we really get. Like, he's a physically imposing force who maybe looks visually interesting, but like this movie takes the time to flesh him out, flesh out other people's reactions to him, gives him comedic beats, and actually makes him important in the plot.
He ties together Killmonger and Wakanda and Wakanda's policy on global politics and all this stuff, and he is a tie to the larger MCU, albeit that role may not be memorable for many people, but he is very important to the plot. And the scene where Killmonger later kills him and going back to Joe Berg, I'll wire you the money, I think that is a bit oddly executed, but overall I think this is a very successful 1-2 punch of villains.
Yeah, I do think like those other ones we mentioned, like the secondary villain becomes the villain that you remember, whereas this movie, like, it has one of the best primary villains of any Marvel movie.
Yeah,
and then the secondary villain is also not as good, but better than pretty much any villain that we've had in a lot of Marvel movies recently.
Yeah, he's better than most of the primary villains.
Yeah.
He's probably the best secondary villain. I'm sure hours after recording this we'll think of someone better, but for right now I would be willing to go with you on that argument. So T'Challa is king now, and he's the first one that we see his little discussion with the elders of the various tribes. They learn of Claw's actions, and his best friend Wakabi, Okoye's lover, asks him to kill him because, as we know, Claw has murdered many people in Wakanda, stolen from Wakanda, and some of the people he has murdered were Wakabi's parents. They track Claw to South Korea, and T'Challa and Nakia and Okoye go to interrupt a sale to CIA agent Everett Ross. Remember him from Civil War? A massive fight erupts and Claw is ultimately captured. So Daniel Kaluuya as Wakabi continues to be great in everything. His breakout performance, of course, in Get Out, but if you've been following his career, he's been very good for a long time.
Black Mirror, he's fantastic in the second episode ever of that show.
Yeah, for sure. Good in
Skins.
Babylon. He's in Skins. He's good in many, many things. Just as comfortable with this African accent as he is with an American one. I wonder how many people... I mean, I'm sure everyone knows he's British, but he's so convincing as an American, and then he's convincing here in this African role, and just he's great. What a star! This character is very interesting in the way he sort of tears the loyalties of T'Challa, the loyalties of Okoye, the loyalties to Wakanda generally, and then his sort of desire to get revenge. He is an interesting character it's a nuanced kind of conflict, where a lot of the time you see good characters turn to the side of evil for unconvincing reasons. His eventual alliance with Killmonger makes sense.
I don't feel mad at him for siding with Killmonger at the end of it, because it's still it's been 30 years and his presumably best friend failed in his attempt to take down his parents' killer.
Yeah.
And all he gets from him as an apology is we let him slip away. I get why his swap away is, and I wish more on T'Challa to go and talk to him about what happened.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, there was this other guy there who was who took him away from us, essentially. This wasn't, oh, we just got bored and left him go. It was someone was there who was trained and was able to take him away from us. And I mean, obviously that would also probably drive him more towards Killmonger eventually, if he found out that there was someone else who had a legitimate claim to the throne after 30 years of having his parents' killer be on the loose. And I don't think the movie talks about it enough. I think a lot of his decisions are done in his head. You have to read his acting a lot to get what the exact mental gymnastics are. But Kaluuya is good enough to sell you on what he's doing.
Yeah.
That I don't think it matters that much.
Yeah. So Martin Freeman is back as Everett Ross. This character is tied to Black Panther in the comics, but I don't know, I kind of have some struggles with him. From a filmmaking perspective, I kind of wish he was in it a lot less than he is. I liked this casino scene, and I get what they're going for, because he talked about being essentially the only white guy on a set surrounded by black people, and he said this must be how black people feel on film sets all the time. And when we recorded this originally, you talked about how his later arc in the movie, it's he gets the token white guy arc in the way that you see a lot of token black guy story arcs. We established that he is this former legendary fighter pilot, so he gets to do some stuff near the end. But I don't know, just his presence in Wakanda, it feels a bit much to me, and I kind of wish that he sort of appeared here and then that you got him at the end with the United Nations scene. But the accent is certainly better, or it bothers me less, and again, it's tying him back into the MCU. Again,
on second viewing, I'm just I really like what they're doing with him. Just because I think Martin Freeman is a good actor.
He is.
And I think he's a good choice for what the MCU is going for as Coulson 2.
Yeah, I can see that. S.H.I.E.L.D. is gone, so the CIA have replaced S.H.I.E.L.D. in a way.
Yeah, so he's very much he's got that. He's like a Coulson who doesn't take a couple of movies to warm up, as we discovered watching the early ones, which is just Clark Gregg takes a little while to get in the swing of what his performance is doing. Whereas I think Martin Freeman, Civil War is a bit of a dry run, but in this movie, I think he fits. I think his reactions are really fun, just very much go with the flow. He ends up in Wakanda, and he's just isn't this a third world country? He's no, it's not. This is amazing. I'm just gonna
I just think it's a bit awkward when he's wandering around Wakanda as the only white dude, and some of the scenes where they're trying to smuggle him through corridors, and when he goes up to meet the Jabari, but it all leads to fun beats. So I guess I'll walk back my stance on it a bit. It's just the jet scene is what bothers me, but we'll get into that later.
But again, the jet scene is very much like what you would expect. Like Will Smith, it's what Will Smith's character does in Independence Day. Like almost exactly is like that is what that character does in that movie. And obviously, I don't think Martin Freeman is quite on the level of charismatic as Will Smith, but like it's very much getting to look. It's a white guy for black people in the same way that it's a black guy for white people.
It just felt like it was getting dangerously close to only this legendary white guy can save us.
No, I think it was just like we've got our own political strife to go away with. Anyone could, Shuri could drive the plane if she wanted to, but
no,
she's
only
not
the legendary Everett Ross.
No, they say like you're a fighter pilot, you can do this, but like Shuri drives the car really well. Shuri could sure as shit do it. Nakia could probably do it. Any of those characters could do it, but their fight is on the ground of Wakanda, not down below taking down some jets in a VR game.
Sure. You mentioned Shuri driving the car. This car chase scene, we don't get a lot of car chases in Marvel, we've mentioned that, where Shuri has got this sort of digital approximation of a car and is taking it over remotely. Really, really fun scene with T'Challa hopping between vehicles and just flying through Korea, driving through Korea, but flying as in moving really fast. Set to the amazing song Ops, Vince Staples.
Don't forget the other person on that song.
Well, yeah, okay, but we come to it for Vince. He must reign supreme over trailers and soundtracks. There should be more car chases, but only if they're done as well as this.
My only complaint with this particular car chase is I don't know how many other cars there are other than the one that Thor is in. Because, like, the one car that T'Challa takes out, and then there's the other car that Okoye and Nakia take out, where she, like, throws the spear through the windscreen, and then it, like, hits the ground, and then it flips over. And, like, the way it was edited, I was sat there going, like, was that Claw's car? And then, like, they cut to Claw's car, and I was like, oh, no, it wasn't. But, like, that's the only complaint I've got, is that, like, for a couple of seconds, I thought the fight scene was over, and I was like, no, the car scene's continuing, yay, more.
Fair. We also, at the end of this, they do catch Claw, and T'Challa has him by the throat, and Ross, I believe, basically is like, don't murder someone in front of all these people. But we have this sort of ongoing thing with T'Challa's feelings about murder. It's something we saw in Civil War, where he opted not to kill Zemo. He's obviously very troubled by what his father did, and I like that this is an ongoing thing for him, that he just morally maybe is not okay with just straight up murdering a dude in cold blood. But I think it's an interesting beat, and it of course bleeds into his downfall from the beloved king to the sort of outcast almost.
I don't have anything to add. You did that perfectly.
Thank you. Okay. So they take Claw in to a CIA safe house. He reveals Wakanda's sort of true nature to Ross, who doesn't quite buy it. But Eric Stevens, of course, assaults this safe house and steals Claw from them and severely injures Ross in the process. And T'Challa opts to take Ross back to Wakanda to heal him with their technology rather than go in pursuit of Claw. Killmonger's back. We will learn in a later scene, but we'll talk about it now, that he is a former CIA operative. He is a former Black Ops specialist. He's one of ours, as Ross phrases it. This bothered me more the first time we did this than now, but this idea that he's conveniently this absolute CIA badass former operative, as well as being this Wakandan uncrowned prince almost. It bothered me a bit. It seemed a little bit too convenient, but now I think on it, it bothers me a lot less. Like, it's something that stuck out to me a little bit the first time. But the thing with like Ross almost getting paralyzed, that's really well done. And like, T'Challa making that choice to not be like his father in this moment and to offer this help, I think is really well done.
I like the tension that they managed to build over the course of this scene, which is Claw never actually gets to sit down with T'Challa. Like, no. we're waiting for that to happen, and instead it's just Everett Ross and Claw talking, and then Killmonger busts in and takes him away. And
we get the great beat where Okoye like essentially refusing to speak English, and then Ross is
talking about, I'm going to go in first, then you're going to go in, and then T'Challa's like, oh, we'll take him back to Wakanda with us. And then I think Everett Ross like slanders T'Challa a little bit, and so Okoye starts talking to him in Wakandan, and at the end of it, Everett Ross is just like, does she speak English? And she just turns to him and smiles and goes like, when she wants to.
Yeah, and she's just terrified of her. I love that so much. T'Challa's decisions, of course, don't go down well, though Ross is healed by Shuri. Stevens, Killmonger, arrives at the border of Wakanda, having murdered Claw as a welcoming gift as he reveals himself when brought before the elders and T'Challa as Njobu's son. His real name is Ndjaka. He is thus T'Challa's cousin. He invokes his right to challenge for the throne, as he wasn't present when they did this the first time around. T'Challa accepts because, he has gone through life as the Black Panther. I think the vibe you get is that he believes he can beat anyone in a fight, despite advice to the contrary, and it does, of course, prove to be unwise, as Killmonger savagely defeats him in combat, throws him over a waterfall, and is declared the King of Wakanda. Michael B. Jordan's delivery of "Sup, Auntie," and he mentions Uncle James when he is reunited with him. It's so good. That whole scene where he's led in handcuffs, and just the way he confronts them, the anger in his voice, the authority he's capable of commanding with his vocal performance there is amazing. And you get to see some of T'Challa's arrogance and the way he just doesn't believe it, and he's just no, you are wrong, and all this. And their fight is brutal, and Killmonger doesn't do any dirty tricks. There's nothing untoward. He just beats him because he is just a better warrior. Or just in this instance, he just wins this particular fight.
I think it's interesting to watch as he changes his fight style, because he does start losing at first.
He does.
And then he's just okay, I can't win doing this, so instead I'm going to go for tactically just cutting him an awful lot.
Yeah. I feel that they start out just having a battle of martial artists of maybe even Wakandan fight style, and then Killmonger just goes into his bag of tricks of being a successful murderer for many years as a CIA tactical operative, as a special, as a mercenary. And I feel he just sort of... You get this sense, it's just this sense of will that this is mine, and I am right, and I am taking this, and I just get that sense that he has the stronger will in that moment, and he beats them in this. We established that ceremony at the beginning, so we see it again, and this time they didn't have time to summon all the tribes, so they're basically just doing it in front of his family. And the sun isn't up, or it's either setting or just rising, But this entire sequence that we're going to get here with Killmonger is just fucking amazing.
Yeah, because you get this just impressive sense that he is willing to go above and beyond for this. Even in the scene before he comes to Wakanda, where Claw takes his supposed girlfriend captive, he tells her everything's going to be all right, and then he just shoots her. He
is on his mission, and nothing will deny him of what he wants to do. And you get to see this when he removes his shirt. He's covered in these scars from. I think they've taken this from a real African custom, and for him it symbolises everyone he's killed. And it's kind of gross to look at on the very impressive physique of Michael B. Jordan, but it gives him this unique element, and you just get the sense of T'Challa, you may not realise what you've gotten yourself in for, is the thing. Whereas when they fight again, he's right, I understand now, we will do this more intelligently. But yeah, in this scene where he is challenged on a level of pride and a level of arrogance, he is defeated. And as well as this, you get this thing that, T'Challa chose to save a white dude and bring him to Wakanda, and they are historically, they have been very insular. They do not want... I think they have the line about, you've seen what happened when, our neighbouring countries had anything to do with these foreign invaders, and it didn't go well. And that he chose to save Ross rather than go after Claw, and Killmonger shows up on their doorstep with Claw's body, revealing why he was doing everything he was doing in the first place. You can see Wakabi's point of view here.
I love the level of kind of court dynamics they build into that scene where he comes into the room. He doesn't speak his name until someone asks him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He says, ask me my name, doesn't he?
Ask me my name, yeah. And then T'Challa and Shuri and all those people, Shuri goes, we know your name, you're Eric Killmonger, you are a CIA black operative, you come into countries to destable them during...
Oh, of course, yeah.
During elections.
About this entire aspect of his character, that, he's an expert in taking down a nation that's in political turmoil, isn't he? And he shows up moments not long after T'Challa's ascended to the throne, and I forgot about that. That was all just another amazing level to his character. Sorry, go on.
So they don't ask him the question, and then as T'Challa gets him taken away, I think it's the head of the River Tribe just kind of goes what's your name? And then he just shouts it out, and then Wakabi reveals that he's got the ring on him. And I love that he still abides by cultural laws, even if you know he probably will have to break them at some point to do what he wants to do. Like, he isn't about to like break this country's customs. He's going to do this in a legal way to get power.
Yeah, he's using it. It's a tool at his disposal that he is using to manipulate them all sort of politically and morally. So, I mean, he is crowned king. He ingests the heart-shaped herb. He gets the powers of the Black Panther. He burns the rest of the crop.
Except for one
that Nakia steals. And he has the support of Wakabi. And his plan is revealed as he's going to distribute this Wakandan technology to the war dogs and lead essentially a cultural, racial uprising and then sort of change the status quo of the world. So Killmonger as king is sexy as he walks around in his sort of big open robe.
That tilt shot.
The turning camera shot is everything as he ascends to the throne as the camera turns. And him standing with his back to camera in the burning room full of the heart-shaped herb. Like, that's all so good. The idea that they would allow him to do it is a bit crazy, but of course he's the king and he physically threatens them, so they do what he says.
It's such a weird thing where like the culture of this country is obviously indebted to once the king is in power, the king is in power, and it feels like there's very little structure involved to kind of like displace a king if you disagree with him.
Yeah, you can see why Daniel Kaluuya would say this is Marvel's Game of Thrones. A very interesting piece of quote-unquote trivia. It's a joke for just the two of us, really. Yeah, like, this plan is it's tricky because it's not your standard, I'm going to take over the world plan. It's not your standard, I'm going to destroy the world plan. It's something very different. Like, I'm not entirely sure how he envisioned this going if he had succeeded.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I think he's intelligent enough to know that it probably is going to go the way he wants, and if he dies at the hands of T'Challa, then he's probably done enough to seed some seeds of discord.
He's been martyred.
Yeah, by being martyred and already having been revealed that he is related to the royal family, he's probably done enough to seed dissent, even if he hasn't done his explicit goal of arming.
Yeah. And he also arguably gets into the head of T'Challa because he is the one that sort of is confronting him about their place in the world, I feel, in some way. Well, actually, Nakia is as well. But I feel the ultimate decision to sort of reveal themselves on a global stage, that is also partly due to Killmonger. We also see him, he gets his scene when he speaks with his father after taking the herb, and like the acting performed there by everyone involved is amazing.
It feels like we're just getting to a point where we're just saying like, oh god, the performances are so good without much.
It's the equivalent of Ragnarok and Guardians where you're just listing off jokes that are good. But yeah, I just want to really just make these cases for their acting because I don't want it to be a surprise at the end when we say 3 people are getting all Marvel performances for this movie.
Spoilers, Matthew.
They clearly, we've got 3 left and we're not just going to keep one, are we? But I do like that scene where, you get to see his childhood in Oakland a little bit and all of that stuff. So Nakia, Shuri, Ramonda and Ross flee because obviously they're going to get super killed soon. They seek the aid of the Jabari and are stunned to find T'Challa's comatose body, and they revive him using that one heart-shaped herb that Nakia stole. He asks the Jabari to help him reclaim the throne, but M'Baku initially refuses. This whole scene in the mountains with the Jabari's city, it's gorgeous, for one thing. I love this open air sort of throne room with the hanging bones and like his throne that like behind him you can just see all the wilderness and everything. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love M'Baku's sort of strong sense of morality, that because T'Challa let him live at the beginning and encouraged him to yield rather than go through with this fight to the death, that is why he would save him, and they've sort of got him in some snow to keep him alive, I guess. I love we are vegetarians, like he initially claims he's going to eat them. Him barking at Ross when he tries to speak. M'Baku here is amazing. Like, at the beginning you're just like, okay, it's just a generic adversary, like one that will get beaten quickly just to establish the status quo and we'll never see him again. This scene is where I'm like, God, I want him to come back, and God, I hope he continues to have a big role within Marvel.
Winston Duke's probably the biggest surprise for me of all this, because like going into this movie, I had heard that Letitia Wright was fantastic. I had heard Michael B. Jordan was really good. I knew Diana Guerrera from Walking Dead peripherally, even though I stopped watching just about as she came onto the show. But watching Winston Duke, like maybe not so much in that first scene, but like this scene right here, I was like, this is someone I want to see more of immediately. There's just a spark to like what he's doing. The bit with the barking is so good. His line delivery is really good. He's got an imposing sense to him that, like, he feels like he could be a king.
Yeah.
Like, much more so than anyone else we see in Wakanda. Like, apart from Killmonger, this is the person that feels like if we were going to have to cede control of this country over to someone else, he could be that person.
You can see why he challenged.
Yeah, exactly.
I also like when he, like, kind of looks bored. Once they've revived T'Challa and they're having their, like, big emotional conversation, he's just sitting there just like, are you done?
Again, like, he completely nails the comedic beats just as much as he nails having to be kind of, like, physically oppressive.
So T'Challa returns to Wakanda to battle Killmonger again, who's now wearing his own Black Panther suit, and his is colour-coded gold, and T'Challa's is colour-coded purple. The Dora Milaje turn on the new king. Well, you know, they initially, they're like, we have to listen to him, and they end up crossing spears with the W'Kabi's forces in this massive battle that involves rhinos. The Jabari later join to support T'Challa. They kind of help tip the balance a little bit. Ross does his little pilot mission, as we said, to sort of shoot down these planes that are carrying the Wakandan tech. There aren't many common criticisms of the movie, but one of the more pervasive ones is some of the CG effects, and some people are not cool with the rhinos. I like that there are rhinos. I like the beat where, like, the rhino charges down Okoye but then it stops and just, like, licks her. I think all that's great, but I don't think they look amazing in some of the visual effects shots.
It's an armoured rhino.
For some people, that's just a little bit too far. Maybe, like, the level of mastery over telling the rhinos what to do might be a bit much for some people. But I like that. Look, you're doing, like, a big story in Africa and Wakanda. Like, it's cool seeing the rhinos, I think.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I don't care. I don't need this to be 100% realistic. My complaints of this final scene, or this final part, are, like, a lot bigger than, oh, there shouldn't be rhinos. They're more on the scale of, like, I'd rather it be a civil war rather than look, they're fighting in two identical suits. I'm more interested in what T'Challa and Killmonger are talking to each other about. I'm more interested in Okoye kind of going against what she said in the scene before, where she's like, I serve the throne rather than the country, or like,
But it's that reveal that T'Challa's still alive, therefore technically their duel never ended, therefore technically he is, for now, still king. So I think she takes that as permission to do what she wants to do.
Yeah, totally. But it's just, I love that she has that level of interpretation of, like, what the law is, because in that scene beforehand with Nakia, what is the line? The line is, I'm fighting for this country, and then Nakia goes, I'm fighting to save this country. And it's very much that she realizes that she's right, and that sometimes there are things above the oath you make to a chair that you should be making to a country. You shouldn't be praying to someone who is arbitrarily sat in this thing. Yeah. You should be fighting to defend the country that you believe in.
Yeah, it's a de facto versus de jure type thing. You know, seeing Killmonger in his Black Panther suit fighting an elite group of the Dora Milaje, it's a good little scene. He kills one of them, obviously. Kind of wish we got more of the individual personalities of this group, but I think they sell it well in their reaction to seeing one of their sisters, like, killed.
Oh, they definitely sell the shit out of it.
Yeah, they do.
Like, it's like, oh, she's dead. It doesn't matter that we probably don't know this person's name. It matters that they care. And I think, like, the fact that they take the time to do that, this isn't someone who is nameless and off to the side. This isn't a problem with, like, the DCEU where, like, civilians are getting killed left, right, and centre. This is a person. And I even like in this final scene where when they're Dora Milaje are fighting the border tribe, they're not going for kill shots.
No, I love that fight. It's a reluctant fight. It reminds me of, like, when Hawkeye and Black Widow are having to fight each other, but instead of, like, making light of it because, like, this conflict doesn't matter, it's like, this super matters, but we super don't want to be killing each other. And, like, that all comes to a head with W'Kabi stands down because he sees Okoye's determination that, like, she will kill the man she loves to do what is right here. And then he just immediately just calls it all off and they all stand down. And I think that is a fascinating, like, exploration of this dynamic, and I desperately want to see what their relationship is like after that, knowing that she would have killed him to do this.
For sure. It's the little stuff like that I really appreciate about this final scene, much more so than the superheroics of it all.
And then, you know, obviously T'Challa wins the final fight with Killmonger after lots of battling in the vibranium mines. I don't know if I love this final fight. I think you're higher on the actual fight than I am. I just think the whole thing is so incidental, and I know they're colour-coded, but it's sort of two CGI things flying at each other again. But then they do make the effort to sort of remove the masks where they can, with this sort of adaptive armor. I don't remember enough of the dialogue they're exchanging in this time, so maybe that's why I'm more down on it. But
I think it's definitely better than Guardians 2's final
Yes.
fight. Like it doesn't descend into two CGI things smashing into two CGI things, because I think there's actually points of view that are being espoused, and I think this fight is important to what T'Challa's decision is once the fight is over. He still sympathises with Killmonger. He still wants to save him. And I think that is an important thing to remember about what they're doing here.
yeah. I love the final moment, with Killmonger refusing the medical help, dying,
And
looking
then
at...
he pulls the sword out of his chest
Yes.
to speed up the process of dying.
Yeah,
he probably could have survived a bit longer if it had been stuck in there, but he pulls it out. And
just
obviously
to
says,
really underline that point of he wants to die in his own terms, and
Yeah.
this will not be dictated to him by T'Challa, and he has seen through this stubborn vision of his as far as it hasn't worked, and he's not just gonna just scurry off and try again. This is what he wanted to do. It didn't work, so fuck it. He's out. It's a shame because this is such an amazing performance, and you would love to see this character continue to exist, but he had to die, I think, in some ways. That this was his vision, that he was so singularly focused. He is not built to regroup and try again, I don't think.
Yeah, now we're in the final movie of this franchise. One of the most comic booky things that they haven't done is keeping a lot of villains alive. And obviously, we've had movies recently where Michael Keaton's Vulture's obviously still alive at the end of Spider-Man, but Spider-Man feels like the kind of villains who Spider-Man doesn't kill. So there's plenty of reason for him to still have villains going around.
Zemo's alive, we don't see Hela die.
But this feels like... So in a comic book, you normally get the position where the villain, you don't see a body or they escape, and it doesn't feel genuine, but you're kind of happy because they don't get to come back. And it's one thing that the Marvel Universe hasn't done, is they haven't had those kind of bullshit ways that the villains survive. And I think it says an awful lot that this is the villain that I want them to come up with one of those bullshit reasons why they survive.
I think that kind of contributes to why the villains aren't looked upon particularly strongly, is that you kind of know going in that they're disposable, that it's just for this film. They will, by the end of this, it'll all be resolved, and then we just move on to the next one. And, Loki is so well regarded, and he is the one that obviously has come back, and his character has changed, and you see how you apply him to a new situation. And this is the one that, given all the acclaim and about this movie and how enthusiastic people are about this character, and it'd be great to see Michael B. Jordan be an ongoing player in the MCU, but sometimes it is better to kill a character. I don't know.
I think it's more that there's no either or. We are at 18 movies now, and most of the villains have died at the end. We have 3 villains, Loki, Zemo, and Vulture, who've all survived the end of their movie, and so because of that, we go in knowing that these actors haven't signed 6 movie deals, and they're going to show up again in a couple of movies' time. And I don't think it would fix everything if we had villains who could become recurring characters in these movies, because I think the problem is deeper than that. But I'm just imagining a world in which maybe it was 50-50 and some of them lived, some of them died. I would be genuinely sad that Killmonger died in this movie, as opposed to it just being, as opposed to this feeling of I wish he was sticking around. It would feel like if we went into this not knowing whether or not he would live or die, there would be more tension in this final fight about whether or not T'Challa is going to be able to convince him that there's a compromise that they can make there.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure there are people trying to come up with excuses and reasons why he could come back. T'Challa could, visit that afterlife thing again and get a little conversation in with Michael B. Jordan in an uncredited cameo or something. But it's a shame. This is a problem with villains. If they're too good, you want them to come back, but then you can't keep coming back, and sometimes you do have to have this resolution. It is difficult. The film closes with T'Challa revealing Wakanda's true nature to the United Nations as Ross looks on. A mid-credits scene, we see that he's bought the buildings that we saw in Oakland at the beginning, and they will be the first Wakandan outreach centers in America. So this is kind of an equivalent of an I Am Iron Man situation, but it's a little bit different, where it's revealing the entire country to the world, and that sets up some very interesting stuff for the next film, where maybe not all of Wakanda would want this, but it is what Nakia was talking about and T'Challa was originally against. It is what the villains wanted, and it's what T'Chaka was against. Although in We said in Civil War his politics seem a little bit different than they are here, but still, it's an interesting place to go, and it is pretty cool, like, seeing Shuri turn up, and, like, she gets to be, like, the head of the scientific sort of sharing of technology with the rest of the world. It's a positive note to end on, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. It sets up so many interesting possibilities for the second movie as well. We know that Infinity War is going to spend at least some time in Wakanda. We generally don't know how much time. We don't know if it's going to be 2/3 of the movie are going to be in Wakanda, or whether or not it's going to be like just one fight scene and then we're off somewhere else. But I like the idea of the second Black Panther movie dealing with a Wakanda that is changed by this battle.
Yeah.
Like, they have opened up the borders in this movie, and immediately they are on set by an alien force, and whether or not there are people saying, like, I wish we had kept secret.
That Ta-Nehisi Coates run, like, that starts with playing up all the things that had occurred in previous runs of the comic, where, like, Doctor Doom invaded and overthrew T'Challa. The bullshit that happened with the Phoenix Five and Avengers vs. X-Men. They devastated Wakanda, and Atlantis' little war, and, you know, just calling T'Challa out on all these things that he allowed to happen with these invasions. So while I wouldn't want it to go to the complete extreme of a potential civil war uprising type thing, I do think it is an interesting beat that they could definitely play off based on what's going to happen in Infinity War.
Yes.
And then in a post-credit scene, Bucky wakes up. They refer to him as the White Wolf. Shuri talks to him. In some ways, it's a somewhat underwhelming final little teaser heading into Infinity War, but they have been trying to scale back the end credit scenes over time. I think Kevin Feige wants to get rid of them altogether, to be honest, but it doesn't need any more hype at this point. Like, Infinity War is Infinity War. It's almost here. We get, you know, we've known that Bucky is in Wakanda since the end of Civil War. It does raise the question of, like, did Cap just drop him off and then go off into hiding? Because I know some people took it that Cap was hiding in Wakanda, but he obviously wouldn't have just stood there while all this shit happened. But it's a fun little final moment with Bucky.
Cap has to go off and grow his, like, really amazing beard, and I don't know if he would have had time to do that during this movie, and maybe even change his name to
Nomad. There you go, there's the movie. It spent a considerably longer amount of time on it this time than our first recording, but I think we got some better discussion out of it this time. So I think you have succeeded on your mission of talking it up to me in this. I've enjoyed talking about it here. I'm still not willing to go as high as some people. I do still have some problems with some of the pacing, where it kind of seems like T'Challa is king for 10 minutes, and then Killmonger is king for 10 minutes, and then we're back to T'Challa. But that is necessary because of how good a job they do of building this world and setting themselves up for future installments. I think it says a lot that Infinity War is going to incorporate so much of the cast of this movie, is going to spend who knows how long, but the scenes with Thanos' forces fighting Wakanda and this ragtag team of Avengers, they are a massive part of all the promotional material. So it says a lot that they are leaning so hard into that, and that this film was so successful, and it's changed the course of the MCU, I would say, forever. And we've got so many people in this who are going to be massive stars, and as I said, I would think that they would be smart to position T'Challa as the Captain America of Marvel going forward, and it's just such a feel-good sort of... It's just a great story, you know, that this has come out and happened and been such an enormous hit. Like, when it was doing well early on, we were all like, oh yeah, cool. And then it's just risen and risen and risen. This goes beyond the MCU, this goes beyond comic book movies. This is just an event in sort of cultural history.
Yeah, like, this has made slightly less money than the Avengers movies, but the Avengers movies, you have to remember, are building off of everything else that these movies have been doing. Whereas Black Panther has, yes, it's coming off Civil War, which also grossed over $1 billion. It's grossed more than Civil War at this point. Yeah. This movie has done so much of this on its own legwork. Like, obviously, there's an inbuilt level of money that these movies make nowadays. It's probably around the $450 to $500 million mark that these movies will just make. But this movie has gone above and beyond that. I genuinely don't know whether or not Infinity War is going to make more money than this one.
That is the narrative that's starting to build, that, like, oh, how embarrassing would it be for Marvel if Infinity War made less than Black Panther? It's like, no, you have that twisted. It's how cool is it that Black Panther made more money than Infinity War?
Yeah, it's not embarrassing at all. Like, yes, I mean, I think it would be hard for Infinity War not to make more money than it, based on the fact that Age of Ultron and the original Avengers have made $1.4 and $1.5 billion each, and this movie's made 1.3.
And it's probably going to do better in the worldwide market than Black Panther, but
yes, and that is the thing. But like, I can definitely see Black Panther. Like, I can see this splitting the difference of Infinity War being the highest-grossing superhero movie ever, and Black Panther still making more money in America.
Yeah, that's good all round. Stan Lee has a cameo in the casino, not really worth talking about. I wonder if the burning of the heart-shaped herb will be the next sort of, the Bifrost is broken and you can never go back. Like, it seems like...
Look, there were seeds under the ground the entire time.
There you go. We nailed it. It naturally regrew because the Infinity Stone... I don't know. So our final segment, Villain Watch, is a pretty goddamn foregone conclusion. Absolutely phenomenal. There's really no need to say any more. Like, this is the best... I mean, we said how Vulture is the best villain since Loki. I don't really care which one of them is 1, which one is 2, and which one is 3, but this is one that people talk about. This is an amazing performance, and I can't wait to see the ongoing adventures of Michael B. Jordan as he campaigns to eventually win an Oscar.
He was alright.
So the third act, it's not as strong as the first 2, but I don't think it's a bad one. I don't think it's a case of, oh, it's good, but they had problems in the third act. I mean, they did have some problems in the third act, but it's not as jarring as some of them are.
Again, we're at a point now where all the Phase 3 movies, apart from Guardians, haven't shit the bed during Act 3. Which I think is like, and even then, I don't think Guardians like completely shits the bed. I think the emotional beats in that movie work really well.
Yeah,
but
you taught me around on that one.
We're at a point where they're not like, this isn't Iron Man 3 or Thor: The Dark World or Iron Man 2 or Ant-Man or
Iron Man 1
or Guardians of the Galaxy or like
Iron Man 2.
Yeah, like where all these movies, the third act is just like you come away from it and go like,
like even Winter Soldier, like one that is held up so high by so many, like the third act of that is not as good as the third act of this, I don't think. Or no, it's a more pronounced drop off. It would maybe be a more accurate way of saying it. Yeah, Phase 3, they've basically just really tightened things up. Like, they are running a much slicker ship here. The villains have been better. The third acts have been better. Like, it's not to say they're all like amazing every time, but it's not as much of a problem as it's been before.
No, and I think it's important to say that like so many of these movies, they feel like they've got more creative control. After the fuck up with Edgar Wright at the end of Phase 2, it feels like we're coming into the Russos and their writing team, like they know what they're doing with Civil War.
Yeah.
Coogler knows what he's doing with Panther. I mean, I think James Gunn got a bit big for Guns 2. But he still knows his characters.
He's got to make good on that.
Yeah, and then Taika's obviously fantastic for Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, I think they've just shored up the business side of it, the MCU ongoing joined narrative so much. They're so good at that they can allow for creative people to come in and play around without the fear of, oh god, they're going to break our big toy.
I think part of that is to do with they're not directly under Marvel anymore.
Yeah,
I think Phase 3 is the first phase where the entirety of it is done without Ike and Marvel breathing down their necks, and instead it's Disney who probably see what they're doing, and they see that these movies make more money when there's a creative team involved, and you can see that from the money. Where Doctor Strange is the lowest grossing movie of this phase, and it's still made $700 million at the worldwide box office.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. They're Marvel now. So, outstanding performances, the all Marvel list we've been cultivating since day one here of this podcast.
I would like to nominate 3 people.
Well, luckily we can do that, but let me do my
Serkis,
talking. Okay.
Martin Freeman.
Okay.
Angela Bassett.
Okay. I'm going to say no on all 3 of those. Each film we have had one pick to make. If there isn't anyone good, we can just say, hey, we're going to keep this and we'll have 2 next time. We have reached this point where, happily enough, we have 3 to play with, 1 for this movie itself and 2 spares. When we first recorded this, we weren't sure how this would shake out, so this was always going to have to be recorded later. But I am happy that we get 3, because we figured we'd have at least 2, and we struggled over who the second one was going to be. I think the unanimous first one is Letitia Wright.
Yes. She is joy incarnate, and I feel like we did her a disservice when we were talking about the third act and what she was doing there. But the scene where she's doing her Q thing, the joy when she jumps into the car, the joy of her explaining stuff to Everett Ross, yeah, she is so damn good.
Her set up to be like a global tech leader, like someone, if not for the fact there's a massive alien invasion, she could be the new hotness on the scene of the tech world, the new Tony Stark, almost like this celebrity figure.
As the memes are going round, I need a scene with her and Tony Stark in Infinity War.
We desperately need for her to sort of smirk while he talks about how good his tech is, and her to be like, well, check this out, and just pulling up a bead, and it just becomes some crazy machine.
I'm actually worried that we're not going to get that based on the fact that I don't think Tony's in any of the shots of Wakanda.
No, I think him, Star-Lord, Spider-Man, Strange are off in one location, and the rest are in Wakanda. Hopefully Tony lives, I say for the first time in my previews of Infinity War.
I mean, Banner's there. Maybe we'll get a Banner scene where Banner's looking over Shuri's work.
That would work. And the Hulkbuster armor's there, and they could talk about how amazing Tony's invention is. Yeah, there you go. He helped create that. So we got two more. I would just say Michael B. Jordan and Danai Gurira.
Yeah, I mean, in the original cut of this, I was fighting for Michael B. Jordan. You were fighting for Danai Gurira. I think
we both brought each other over to the... I mean, I didn't not like Michael B. Jordan, but I kind of like it more now than I did at the time, and I think you're the same with Danai. I'm very happy this has worked out this way, because we get all of them. As I said, it's a shame for Chadwick Boseman that, he's surrounded by so many amazing people. By no means is he bad. In an earlier stage of the MCU, he might have got one, but, the standard has been raised, and you've got Andy Serkis, who is very good. Martin Freeman is by no means bad. Daniel Kaluuya is doing a lot with not a lot of screen time, but
Winston Duke is so good.
Yeah, that Lupita is by no means bad, but there's so much going on, and those are the three for me. But let's celebrate this entire cast. Probably the best one.
Yeah, we gave Guardians, all five of them, the nod back then.
The nation of Wakanda.
Yeah, I don't think we could do it in this one because I don't think they're quite as cohesive a unit. I think they're all better defined and they all operate independently of each other enough.
We gave it to the Guardians because they all needed each other. They all lent on each other. They all made each other stronger. Here you have a big group of individuals who all are fully autonomous characters, who are all interesting, who you could all conceivably see a 20, 30, 40-minute story playing out in a sequel about them. So, yeah, amazing cast, amazing music, amazing visuals. This thing is the best or number one in so many categories.
Yeah, I made this statement in the initial version of this podcast, and I'm going to make it again. This is the best movie that the MCU has given us.
Wow.
It's not my favourite of the 18 movies we've watched so far. I think there are other ones that play off a little bit better of the history of the cinematic universe. But if I were to choose something that was someone's first time watching one of these movies, this is better than Iron Man. Yeah. This is better than Captain America. This is better than Guardians of the Galaxy. This should be so many people's first entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
We started this podcast, episode 1, Iron Man. For a lot of people, for a long time, the number one film. We were like, look, let's be real here, and we pointed out a lot of the things that are wrong with it. You fast forward to episode 18 with Black Panther, and look how far this company has come. Look how much better they are at making movies now. Look how good this is compared to Phase 1. Phase 2 had a lot of problems as well, as they were trying to find their identity and struggle with their success after Avengers. And it's such a testament, and I'm so excited to see what comes after this. It's a massive ask to top this creatively, and sort of the feel goodness of it. And I'm just really excited to see where they go. And there's going to be a lot of blank slate for new characters and new franchises. And I hope that we can get something vaguely like this again. We'll see where it goes. This, in theory, is the end of Ben and Matt's Marvellous journey, but we are, of course, heading towards Infinity War. We, as I said, the preview episode crossover with the Superhero Pantheon should be up. Before we actually talk about and review Infinity War, because of Marvel fucking us over with the schedule and stuff and moving the release date forward, and I'm going to be away the weekend it comes out, we are on the 10-year anniversary of Iron Man 1's American release. We are going to be releasing an episode that is a sort of retrospective of the entire MCU, our favourite moments, and we're going to round up this, the All Marvel list, just notes of some trends and all this fun stuff. A nice, short, breezy episode, and then episode 20 will be a review of Infinity War, and that will be a colossal task, but for now, we have completed the 18 currently released Marvel movies. So well done to us. And well done to you all for
listening. There were only 17 of these when we first discussed doing this in December.
That's true.
Done it twice.
We've done it twice. I didn't think we would reach this point where we had actually...
The movie's so good, we talked about it for about 4 hours.
Yeah, and who knows which one will be released. Probably this one. Probably this one. So yeah, thank you for listening. EnterTheRealWorld.com. I've been Matt, he's been Ben, and we will see you for our 10-year retrospective.
I disagree with the list that we've put out in the crossover episode.
So do I. Anyway, bye everyone.
Not your people, not your neighbor, not your baby, not your equal, not the title y'all want me under. Hell King, Killmonger. Red like green, like red like green, like red like green, like they like we like fast cars.